Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Digital EDU Dialogues podcast. I'm Angela Britcher, and joining me today is Brad Benedict. Brad is the State Workforce Advisor at Transfer. Welcome, Brad.
Good morning, Angela. Thank you for the time this morning. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we are so excited to talk to you about how you and your organization are using virtual reality as a tool for both exploring and experiencing careers and workforce development. And we want to start, though, with your story, because your journey is something I hear so often from returning college students. And by returning, I mean students who maybe started school or maybe are just coming to school a little later after some work experience. And I think your story really informs the passion that you bring to the work that you do now in workforce development. So tell us about your story.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity, Angela. I gotta say, two words kind of sum up my career path to get to where I am today, and that's beautifully chaotic. And the reason why I say that is that statistically speaking, I probably shouldn't be here speaking with you today. Reason for that, I'm humbled to come from poverty. There were many nights where our heat was turned off or our electricity was turned off or we had meals that were not able to be had. So just to know that I have a unique lens to kind of filter my career path through, it really just dawns on me that I'm really blessed and fortunate to be where I am. That being said, I joke a lot that I consider myself a brat of all trades. I've spent about a little under 15 years in the restaurant industry, about a decade in the manufacturing industry, and worked for Fortune 500 companies in between. And that really put me into a position to understand my skill sets, figure out how to maximize my strengths, hide my weaknesses, and put me into a position to thrive professionally. And a lot of that comes down to, a joke that I'll say here about Liam Neeson from the movie Taken, and that he has a lot of skills, and I've gained a lot of skills throughout my professional journey as well. And a lot of that made me realize that I hit a glass ceiling in two different industries that required me to have a little bit of oomph to break through. And that came in the form of returning to higher education later in life in my mid-30s, where I was able to take a more directed approach to how I was going to handle higher education, make some informed decisions about the institutions that I was going to, take my courses with, to really maximize my time and to not break the bank while getting the degree that I needed to thrive professionally. So all of that's to be said is that it has been a wild ride in my 30 years working professionally, and I have to give so much credit to my grandmother. They don't make women like they used to, and the work ethic that she has instilled in me has been embedded into, me cleaning offices at age 11, to running my own restaurant, to also becoming a major player in engineering as well in the ceramic manufacturing industry. So all of that to be said, it has been a wild ride to get to where I am today. And now that I get to really use my strengths, I get to now kind of channel a quote that's really impactful for me growing up, is to be the person today that you needed to be when you were a kid. So I understand how challenging it is to find a career pathway, associate that with an academic pathway to get you the skills needed to be employable, and to be able to use 30 years of professional experience, lump it into technology and virtual reality that I love today, has just been so rewarding.
Brad, you say so many things that I think resonate with students, as well as those of us working with students and people that have taken a windy road in their careers. And I just want to say how much I appreciate what you said about your grandmother, because you started by talking a little bit about luck and being blessed. And I thought, as I'm hearing you, what I'm hearing is the result of hard work and the result of putting in the time and the effort and the hours to get where you are. And I think that's such a great example for all of us that we can achieve and we can do hard things and we can get to the next place in our career. And as one of my favorite mentors always says, he's like, to do the next good. And so here you are doing your next good. And so let's talk a little bit more about workforce development and why it's so important to break those misconceptions about vocational and career training and how we can bring education to people who need it most.
So one of the things that I think of when I think of workforce development is that there are so many opportunities out there that are hidden in plain sight. And for the longest time, and don't get me wrong, it's a phenomenal process, but in order to get a successful professional future, you needed to get that 4-year college degree in order to get that path started for yourself. But when it comes down to workforce development, there's so many more opportunities that require more than a high school diploma, yet less than a 4-year degree, that offer life-sustaining wages with an opportunity towards upward mobility. So when we think about workforce development, we don't want to think about just one linear pathway to sustainability. We want to include as many pathways as possible, because let's face it, Angela, a 4-year college path is not the right pathway for every student coming out of high school. Especially when you start to look at it from a higher enrollment standpoint, based off your socioeconomic standing, the opportunities that you have to enroll in higher education can vary. There's been statistics out there that say, if you are higher on the socioeconomic chain, that you're more likely to go to college at about an 87% enrollment rate versus 67 for a middle class, or 51% of lower socioeconomic students enroll in higher education. So we have to start looking at workforce development where, if not college, then what? And that's the beauty that virtual reality can do for students, is that it can answer those questions, inform academic pathways, and really set up a student for success moving forward.
And talk a little bit more about that, how we can use these tools to really create experiences for students so they can have just tastes of experiences of the workforce and help make those informed decisions.
Yeah, so I'm going to speak to my manufacturing background here, Angela, in the sense that, by 2030, there's a projected of 2.1 million manufacturing jobs and careers that are likely to go unfilled. Now, to what I had said earlier about, pathways requiring more than a high school diploma, yet less than a 4-year degree, manufacturing is one of these opportunities that's out there. Yet it's shrouded in misconceptions, smokestacks and steel mills. I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania. Billy Joel famously sang about, Bethlehem Steel, in my area growing up. But manufacturing isn't what it used to be. A lot of it is automation, robotics, and a lot of these manufacturing labs are cleaner than your kitchen in your own home. Yet there's a misconception that that's not the case. So what virtual reality can do is that it can bring career awareness, accessibility to people, as you said, in those bite-sized snippets, to take them from wherever they are, transport them to a manufacturing facility to learn about semiconductor manufacturing. The CHIPS Act that's out right now, there's a lot of emphasis on bringing American jobs back to American soil, but without a qualified workforce to fill these positions, the opportunities may not be able to be taken advantage of. So virtual reality can fill that gap, bring these different careers top of mind, and then let students as early as middle school to high school have that informed academic pathway to really set themselves up for success. And it's not just manufacturing that's shrouded in misconceptions. Healthcare is another industry where, we'll think of doctors and nurses and surgeons, but there's a wide range of other options in healthcare, that are in high demand right now, offer a sustainable wage, but are also not top of mind. Home healthcare aides are one. My grandmother, unfortunately, bless her heart, she was a COVID casualty in a nursing home. And that's another area of healthcare that is just begging for an influx of qualified talent to come in. And, if you even want to exacerbate the issue a little bit more, our current workforce is aging and readying to retire. And when they do, not only is that going to leave voids within the industries that they're working for, but it's going to create greater demands for healthcare services for when they do retire as well. So, virtual reality really just plays a way to bridge the gap, to make more careers top of mind and help fill those in-demand roles that are going to be really unfortunate to not be filled come 2030.
And one of the things that you and I talked about when we first met was about building confidence for to fill these in-demand roles. We know we have these jobs that are going unfilled and that are, we talk about trades and we talk about manufacturing and healthcare. How do these tools help build confidence for students who are thinking about those careers or as they get introduced to those careers?
Well, think about the way that we introduce different career paths to students and job seekers too, by the way. A lot of it is through videos, guest speakers that'll come in on a career day, pamphlets, brochures, things like that. But when it comes down to creating confidence in people looking for gainful employment opportunities, virtual reality lets them learn by being virtually hands-on. So it takes away the guesswork of what it's like to be an EMT or to work in manufacturing or construction. And it gives a tangible experience that lets someone really make an informed decision, find their interests, and then capitalize on it as well. So there's different applications of virtual reality. There's 360 video where you're just standing there looking around and someone is talking to you, and that's great. But that underscores the immersiveness of that technology, where if done in my opinion, in a more engaging way by being hands-on, the confidence comes in doing the tasks, recognizing that you can do them, and then thinking about what that career path could look like and what success could look like. Without having that little taste of success, you may never know. And that's information that just can't be relayed from a guest speaker or through a video or a promotional flyer.
One of the things that you and I talked about was this idea of that students get to practice in like a safe environment, and how important this is, especially for healthcare, of course. But if you could give us a scenario where a teacher and students may use this kind of technology in a classroom to do that like kind of safe laboratory practice, and then how they can apply it in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that I'll think of is there's two visceral experiences that you can replicate safely in virtual reality that is not always practical to do in the real world. So let's, for example, if you wanted to be a lineman, a lineman really keep my kids happy. If Wi-Fi goes out and then my kids can't have access to their technology, that makes for a bad day at the home office, so to speak. But it's not practical to let a novice student or a novice job seeker go out, climb a utility pole, figure out the electrical components, and to restore power to an area. But in virtual reality, you can kind of trick your brain to think that you're 35 feet up into the air doing this work without ever having your feet leave the ground. In healthcare, it's great to think about all the positives that you can do in healthcare, helping people in times of distress and in times of need. but it's not always also practical to deal with blood or bodily fluids and things like that, where again, in virtual reality, it can be a safe and supportive environment to really understand what these careers offer, the tasks that are associated with them, and then seeing yourself thrive in them. We have a surgical technologist simulation that is helping on a knee surgery. And it's a very visceral experience where, you're getting to work with an abundance of healthcare tools, and you're using a bone saw during this simulation to go in and replicate part of this procedure. And Angela, when I say visceral, I mean that in every sense of the word. Blood will be coming out and you have the PPE on to protect you, but it still is one of those experiences where maybe you can deal with blood, but maybe not to that extent. Yet in virtual reality, you can do that and still be safe in that environment to learn about what those roles offer.
Those are such great examples, which literally give all of us a visceral experience of what this is like to take advantage of these tools in a classroom. And I want to talk a little bit more about kind of the practical side of how a teacher could use, or a professor could use these tools in their classroom as they're working with students, and what that might look like in a classroom as a teacher might be working with some students and having others do other work.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of success here in a lot of different ways to embed VR into the classroom. One of the things that we hear a lot through conversations is instructor bandwidth. It's just really challenging for personalized instruction inside the classroom. You might have, one teacher or one instructor for 20 to 25 students. And let's just use, for example, another great demographic of education, the automotive technology field. You could only fit so many students around a car to learn, how to change an oil or to change brake struts and things along that nature. So the students that are as close to the vehicle as possible are getting that immersive experience, versus the students that are in the back may not be getting that same level of immersion. Versus when you put on a VR headset, you get that one-to-one personalized instruction. So we're seeing a split classroom model where, let's just use 20 as a round number. You split it in half. 10 students are working with the instructor on the car, going through that live instruction. And then the other 10 students are doing the exact same lesson, but in virtual reality, guided by a digital coach. So this has a number of ways, not only to increase instructor bandwidth with inside the classroom, but also to increase the personalization of instruction as well, without removing that hands-on approach to learning, which when we talk about, the skilled trades or other hands-on occupations, you need that hands-on instruction in order to show skill mastery. So that's just one aspect of it. And to use a workout terminology here, for muscle confusion, right? You can also learn by different approaches educationally as well. You can learn through dictation, through videos, through posters. There's a lot of ways to relay information, but in virtual reality, you combine all of those into one experience. So you're getting muscle memory, you're getting the audio visual, you're getting that hands-on. Now, all of a sudden, the lesson that you're trying to convey becomes more sticky to the student while still giving them that personalized instruction.
That stickiness. I was just talking with a colleague about that yesterday. What do we got to do to make it stick? And I'm thinking I will message her later. Like, let's think about some VR. We actually have VR at that particular institution. And speaking of that, how can we do a better job of taking advantage of VR in higher education classrooms, or just in higher ed in general?
Yeah, well, the first thing you have to do to take advantage of VR is to understand what outcomes that you want. Because without that, VR can just be a shiny toy that's going to collect dust on a shelf because of a good idea. So being really tactical in how you want to implement it will go a long way in producing successful results. You could use virtual reality as a recruiting tool to create community interest in academic programs, both at the high school and at the higher education level. Virtual reality is a portable recruiting tool, that you can take with you if you wanted to go out to job fairs, career fairs, or go into the community. And it's also beneficial to drive people to your location as well to understand what programs that you offer and if it's a right fit for them.
I'm thinking about the institutions where I work for and where I teach, and what a great recruitment tool this is for students that are thinking about, whether it's being a dental assistant or a doctor of physical therapy, that the whole breadth of those degree options or certificate options to, a 7-year degree option, or things like cybersecurity, and that there's so many opportunities to use this as a tool to introduce students to your institution, again, whether it's a certificate program or a degree program, and to help students make informed decisions before they decide on a program, as well as then to integrate those tools into a classroom. Brad, is there anything else that you think it's important to share about VR or about transfer and the work that you do in workforce development?
Yeah, I guess the one thing I want to say is that, this technology is really multifaceted in its approach. So when you start thinking about, driving enrollments, because college enrollments are down nationwide, not only for 2-year but 4-year institutions as well. So this technology can go a long way of introducing these academic pathways that are out there, and then to capitalize on interest in real time as well. So you can move from exploring careers to actually getting job skills based training as well. And I will say that it's important to recognize the different kind of programming that's out there when considering to put it into your academic programming. I had mentioned about the 360 video versus the hands-on immersion. We're at the tip of the iceberg when it comes down to VR technology in education. It's primarily known for gaming and entertainment, but the applications in education are just growing exponentially by the day. So when it comes down to this technology, understand that, it has applicability for a middle school student to explore careers to inform their high school academic pathways. It could be used in higher education as well for similar results. But it could also be used for youth development with nonprofit organizations, for after school programming or summer camps. And this technology can also be embedded into educational programming in the reentry space as well. So this is such a versatile piece of technology that, due to the portability aspect and the creativity aspect of programming, you can really embed this into a wide range of programs and have really tremendous results afterwards.
It's so exciting to hear about and hear the options, and how I just think it's going to continue to grow, and how we can use this, again, from our kids up to adults that are making career changes, can all take advantage of these tools. And I appreciate so much what you said about, we need to align it to our learning objectives instead of playing with the shiny tool, which is really fun when you're in middle school, but to really align with the learning objectives and to find the best tool for you and the best way to use it in programs. And so I think it's a really exciting future for using VR in education. So Brad, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Angela. Thank you again for the opportunity. It's sincerely appreciated.
This episode of DigitalEDU Dialogues is brought to you by the BAB Group. The demands for teaching and online learning are constantly evolving. Don't get left behind. Carve out a competitive edge and give students engaging learning experiences with support from the BAB Group's team of course design experts. As experienced online faculty and instructional designers, the BAB Group knows how to craft those aha moments for students and meet outcomes for every modality, online, hybrid, and face-to-face, creating engaging, welcoming, and inclusive learning spaces